Hello, Daphne here with a very, very fascinating story for you. Talk about the understatement of all times. That is the title of this video. I think that most of us who have gotten on planes from time to time have had this thought in the back of our minds, am I going to make it to my destination? I mean, that thought's come to me when I've gotten on a plane, especially when there's a little bit of turbulence or something goes wrong. But it's not something that really is at the forefront of my worries. It's just a thought in the back of my mind. But I can only imagine what it would have been like to be on this flight. I'm telling you, this survival story fascinates me, and I hope it will you too. Particularly interesting are the ones that survive disaster, the airline disaster, when the odds are almost zero against you. This story below is a testament to the expertise and the human spirit of an airline pilot who beat the odds when all 4 engines shut down. Yeah, all 4 of them. Can you imagine? Well, it's a true story. As we all know, the 747, with its massive size and signature upper deck, is one of the most recognizable aircraft in the world. It triggered a revolution in airlines. These planes are chock full of safety devices to keep the plane in the air and passengers safe. Air travel is by far and away the safest mode of transportation. Statistics show that 0.07 deaths for every 1 billion miles traveled compared to 212.57 for motorcycles and 7.28 for cars. Now listen to this. A failure of all engines is perhaps one of the scariest things that can happen up there, high in the air at 30,000 feet. Yet this is exactly what happened to Speedbird 9 when all 4 engines powering up a British Airways Boeing 747 jet flamed out. Despite that, British Airways Flight 9 remains one of the most incredible stories about a situation absolutely nobody ever wants to find themselves in. Speedbird 9 takes off on a clear, dark night. On the evening of June 24th, 1982, a British Airways Boeing 747-200 with 260 people on board, including 248 passengers and 15 crew members, took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The flight crew consisted of Captain Eric Henry Moody, Senior First Officer Roger Greaves, and Senior Engineer Officer Barry Townley Freeman. Speedbird 9 was headed towards Perth, Australia, where it was supposed to land some 5 hours later. It was already the 3rd leg of a longer route from London, UK, to Auckland, New Zealand, via Bombay, Kuala Lumpur, Perth, and Melbourne. The airline settled into a cruising altitude at 37,000 feet. The en route weather forecast was good, and it looked as though the flight was going to be uneventful. Boy, if there was ever a false impression, that was it. The first sign that Flight 009 was not going to be uneventful after all, appeared just around 8:40 p.m. Jakarta time, when the jumbo jet was soaring high above the Indian Ocean, south of Java. Captain Moody, who was stretching his legs, was summoned back to the cockpit. Yep, he was summoned back to the cockpit because something was going on, and he needed to be there. As he climbed the stairs On that 747 that night, there was this very, very bad smell in the air. Upon reaching the cockpit, the captain noted puffs of smoke billowing from the vents in the floor. Outside the window was a scene ablaze with an intense display of a weather phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire, a discharge of static electricity that looks, and I've been in a plane surrounded by St. Elmo's fire, and it looks like the whole plane is surrounded by lightning, and it's just a scary, scary thing to witness. Okay, a couple of minutes later, the engine trouble began. Engine failure number 4. Townley Freeman called out. In a few minutes, all 4 Rolls-Royce RB211 engines began surging and flaming out. Oh, all 4 of them, all gone, every one of them. The fact that all 4 can fail mid-flight came as a shock and disbelief. Well, there's another understatement if I've ever heard one. When the crew squawked 7700, Jakarta Air Control did not understand the message of the Mayday call. The air traffic control thought Speedbird 9 had only lost 1 engine, not all 4. Luckily, a Garuda Indonesia plane nearby heard and communicated the message correctly to them. Meanwhile, passengers on board the City of Edinburgh, as this particular Boeing 747 was called, heard the following captain's announcement. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," he said in the calmest of voice. "This is your captain speaking. We have a small problem. All 4 engines have stopped. We are doing our damnedest to get them going again. I trust you are not in too much distress." Captain Moody, that was his message to the passengers. A message that since has earned the status, and a well-deserved status, of the most iconic understatements of all time. Speedbird 9 glided with no engine thrust for approximately 15 minutes, during which time the Boeing 747 descended from 37,000 feet all the way down to 12,000 feet. Ugh. The flight crew was finally able to restart the engines, although engine number 2 later surged again and was shut down until the end of the flight. But miraculously, all 3 of the 4 engines returned to service. Once the flight finally reached the Jakarta International Airport, Indonesia, landing proved to pose additional difficulty for the pilots. While the weather in Jakarta was supposed to be good and clear, the crew could barely see anything through their wide screen and had to rely on an instrument approach. They couldn't see nothing from out the windows, absolutely nothing. It was like it was pitch black outside. Despite all of those difficulties and against all odds, the flight landed safely, leaving all 263 people on board safe and sound. Once the flight finally reached Jakarta's International Airport, the pilots of British Airways Flight 9 were lauded for averting one of the biggest aircraft crashes probably ever over the Indian Ocean. Turns out, and this is what is so fascinating, it turns out that descent from 37,000 feet down to 12,000 feet, and with all the engines out, was what did the trick, the gliding of the aircraft. It took 2 days until investigators found it was volcanic ash that caused the aircraft's strange behavior. British Airways jumbo jet flew through a dust cloud from Mount Galunggung volcanic eruption, which took place 110 miles southeast of Jakarta. Well, friends, isn't that just an absolutely remarkable story? I just smile at the happy ending. It was against all odds that everybody survived. That captain instinctively knew what to do, and there they all were. I can only imagine the hoops and hollers and clapping and gratefulness that all those passengers felt as they touched down safely on terra firma.